This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed. Hey y'all, welcome everyone to another episode of Benefits Buzz. And on this week's episode, we are talking about lifestyle spending accounts, Kelsey. And I don't know, like if all the benefits were like kids in school, LSAs would be like the cool kid in school, right? It's such a fun, cool, unique benefit.
It really is. I think it's just because it's customizable. The options are endless. Employers can really customize, but I'm really excited about our conversation today too, because the last episode we did on LSAs has had the crown for best episode forever. So we're going to see if we can top that today.
Yeah, for sure. This has been like one of the most popular episodes, and I can't wait to build. That was back in season 1. Here we are in season 4. And we're going to address it again. We've got a really cool case study and a really cool guest. I'm on this cool kid, cool case study, cool guest. Anyway, we've got Wylana Cruz. She's a benefits consultant with Hayes Companies, and she is our guest today. Wylana, welcome to Benefits Buzz.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're great to have you. Like I said, you can tell we're a little jacked about LSAs, and we're excited to talk about all the cool ways that employers can think about LSAs really as a fully customizable benefit, as well as a kind of a cool way to stand out, I think, and we'll dive into that. So let's start our conversation about this case study that we talked about. So you work with a client out in Vail, Colorado, right? And Vail, Colorado, the city. And so we want to talk about, you've had a lot of experience with LSAs, and I want to hear about how they've sort of used LSAs for their purposes and as a way to kind of offer a really cool benefit.
Right. Yeah. So at the town of Vail, we were approached by them back in about 2018 because they had heard about LSAs from SHRM, actually. I don't know what was happening in 2018, but that was the year where I think LSAs came to the forefront, even though I think they were technically around for quite some time. But it gained a lot of buzz back in 2018. And so they wanted to learn more about it. And so we eventually they pulled the trigger on it, and they've loved it ever since.
So what exactly were they looking for in a benefit? Like what drew them to the LSA?
So I think primarily the flexibility. They love that about it, and they are already sort of encompassing sort of health and wellness into the benefits program already. But that was really more in the form of certain eligible expenses. It wasn't as robust as they have it with an LSA, and so I think that they were just really drawn to the flexibility and being able to provide a lot more options in terms of health and wellness for their employees, and they've loved it ever since. I mean, they get great feedback.
That's awesome. So employees are loving the LSA. What specifically did they end up choosing for their LSA? Because I know, like we talked about a little bit a few minutes ago, the options are endless. I mean, the eligible expenses that you can pick are endless. You can choose whether you want to require substantiation. Do you want to require employees to meet a certain criteria before they get their dollars? So how did they set theirs up, and what does theirs look like?
So the way theirs is set up is, I think, all full-time eligible employees are eligible for the LSA. And then on top of that, it's a flat annual amount. So they give each employee $800 annually to spend. So at the beginning of the plan year, it kind of works the same way as an FSA. So it's available day one, and then they can use that throughout the year. They do require substantiation, but it's really just in the form of their receipts need to meet the buckets that they're pulling from the LSA eligible item list that they've got. And that's really it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They love kind of how simple it is as well. I mean, it's a great way to offer so many different things with relatively little admin work on the back end.
Yeah, that's always a plus.
Now you're speaking HR pros language, right? Yeah. So what can they use those funds for? So let's maybe talk about again, we talked about how customizable they were, but what did they decide to use those LSA funds for in the town of Vail?
Right. So they do your box product. However, they did have a couple other customizations, and that's really just kind kind of Vail Mountain Town specific, and so that includes things like ski passes, national and state park fees, camping fees, equipment, stuff that you probably do that's relatively popular in the area. They wanted to include those as well. So I think it's covering everything under the sun when you put it that way under the box product.
That's so insane. That's so cool. Like literally, I think about, we've talked about how employers be competitive and how do you offer really cool benefits, and literally saying, hey, we have dollars. Like talk about catering to your audience and knowing what your employees care about. Here are some things you can use for for things that are probably important to them and part of their lives and hobbies that they know bring joy, right, to them. And would be a really, really strong recruiting tool, and a really really, this is part of my benefits. Like that, I think I love that you brought that up. And I think if anyone is listening right now, they should be thinking, wow, that's super cool and super unique. What are some really cool ways within my community or in my town or in my city that might be really specific that I could think really creatively about LSAs? And that's why, again, I get so pumped about that particular benefit.
Well, and especially with all the talk in the country right now, there's been this topic of the Great Resignation, right? Coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, knock on wood, talking about employees maybe looking for other opportunities, coming out of like working from home for a long time, or the struggles that they went through during the pandemic. So I think we've definitely heard a trend of employers and consultants looking for unique ways to, attract new talent, retain the talent they have, because we know how costly that can be. One thing I want to go back to is you mentioned that they get $800. That is a very healthy lifestyle spending account budget. I just want to throw out a couple of different stats. We have some benchmarking across our WEX book, and the average employer contribution is about $935, which is quite a bit. But I think the biggest thing, and I would love your opinion on this too, is it doesn't have to be $800. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a ton of different benefits to even like a $50 contribution or a $100 contribution. Have you had any other conversations with any other clients where they are maybe looking at a smaller contribution for a lifestyle spending account?
Yeah, we've definitely had a conversation. I think though, over the past year, a lot of our clients had to make some really hard financial decisions. And so the timing just wasn't right. However, there's been tons of interest in the LSA, and I don't doubt that, over maybe the next even year or two, that we'll get a lot of our clients probably on that LSA grind. But yeah, I mean, it's great, and we love being able to offer or get our clients aware and educated on what's out there, especially in terms of, like your typical wellness program that you've got currently. I mean, it's pretty limited, and it's nowhere near as robust as this. And it's nice to be able to give your employees the opportunity to engage in health and wellness for things that they actually want to do versus, having to do a physical exam. Or
you nailed it. You nailed it right there, right? Like I think about all the things, even again, we go back to this, right? Right. You look at, again, if I'm looking at it for an employer, I'm looking at benefits, right? Oh, everyone's got the 401k match, or everyone's got the typical benefits, but something like this really stands out. And like you said, it's a really unique way that you can include that wellness and really kind of tap into something really unique about that. And to your point, right? It needs to be right fiscally. It needs to be a right place. But I love your point, Kelsey. It doesn't have to be 800. It could be 50. It could be 100. It could be more than that, depending on what you think will hit right and what you have available to contribute. So I have to ask then, really cool benefit for Vail. Have you seen? Everyone wants to know. Has there been ROI, or have you seen good usage, or have you heard of good usage with that benefit because it's so unique?
Yeah. I think that the employees largely take advantage of the whole contribution for the most part. The only thing I would say is that we'd love to get some more insight on exactly what they're using those funds for in terms of the buckets that they're pulling from. So, for example, are they using it for ski passes mostly, or gym equipment, stuff like that? But I think overall that, yeah, they have been utilizing it to the full advantage. But like Kelsey said, with the Great Resignation, I mean, they were very interested in keeping this going, hopefully for the long term, with regard to retention, because it's so hard out there to retain great talent, and across the book, even not just for Vail, but for a lot of our clients, they're having a lot of trouble being able to attract people to their job, to their companies and the jobs that they've got out there. But again, this is a great way to do it. So if you can do it, for those who are listening, it's awesome. And even if, like you were saying, Eric, even $100 or $900, whatever the benchmark is, I still think it's a great way to invest in your employees in something that they actually want to do, not that they're necessarily forced to do, from a traditional wellness standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unique in the different expenses. So for those who maybe are a little bit newer to the LSA, you talked about the different buckets that employees can spend their dollars in. So from a WEX standpoint, we kind of have it broken out into 3 different buckets where we see this benefit most impactful, and that's physical, financial, and emotional. Across our book, we do see that a majority of participants who are in the LSA using that financial wellness bucket. So I just want to share some of the examples of eligible expenses so those who are listening can get an idea or scope of what we're talking about. So a few that might stand out would be like a home purchase expense. So like closing costs, like things that, you go to buy a house and it sneaks up on you at the end. You're like, ooh, that's kind of a big bucket of money. Or identity theft services, student loan reimbursement, financial advisors or planning services. Physical, I think people are used to the physical wellness bucket, right? Because that's what most wellness programs are made up of. So like you said, gym equipment, for Vail, and it's actually in our box solution too, the ski, snowboarding passes, golf, personal trainers, fitness trackers, rock climbing, if you have an area where you can do that. Definitely not in Fargo.
Yeah, we live in Fargo now. Yeah, not a lot there.
Yeah.
Maybe not there, but over here, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last bucket would be emotional wellness. So especially coming out of a pandemic, meditation classes and apps, non-medical counseling, retreats, pet care, camping, personal development, the park passes like you talked about. So just things to get people out there and doing something a little bit different than your traditional wellness program does.
Right. Yeah.
So have you seen anything from Vail example? And by the way, Kelsey, that was awesome to walk through all those. So thank you. Because while this Vail example is really cool and I love hearing those tangible examples, it's also great to step back and go, whoa, you can literally use all those things that you rattled off. There's so many great applications for the lifestyle spending account. So thanks for doing that.
Stuff, especially from if you are an employer with a relatively young demographic, the student loan reimbursement is pretty great, especially given currently that if you were put in a hard financial situation, it's been paused for so long. And so that's a great way to, give back to employees.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you heard, I don't know how tight you are with the Vail, HR team, but have you heard anything of what have been some of the residual effects of having this LSA when it comes to retention or recruitment or healthier employees? Have they shared any of that with you at all?
Not necessarily, just because we're not able to get the data per se, but but overall, absolutely no one's complaining. I think that they've done several internal surveys, and it's always been great feedback in terms of people loving the philanthropy behind it. My only takeaway is again just the data, and that would be helpful from an employer standpoint, just to see what people are most attracted to and what is most important to their employee base.
Yeah, definitely a good indicator is them being passionate about renewing the LSA benefit over and over again, right? Usually a pretty good indicator is of success. So I appreciate you sharing what you can.
And it's definitely important to them. Even given, the hard financial aspect of COVID and how that affected them, they're still able to do that same contribution, which is great. It's just showing that it can be, when you're giving each employee such a high amount, it adds up pretty quickly, but it just goes to show that they really value this benefit and giving that to their employees.
So because you've had this experience with Vail, because I think one thing we've seen with LSAs is there's so much interest in the market. Like you said, I think in 2017 or 2018, SHRM came out with a big article on it. And then since then, it's been ongoing conversations where employers are very intrigued to buy it. But when you're having conversations with employers, what do you think the biggest things that they're looking for are? Maybe what are some of the obstacles? I want to hear a little bit more about like your expertise in the consulting world and how you help those employers come to decisions.
I think that the biggest hurdle is honestly just the education piece, because it's essentially a benefit that I mean, at least at our brokerage, not a lot of our clients even know what it is. And so taking the time to educate them on what it is and all the benefits of it, because we do have a lot of employers, obviously given COVID, like how do we retain talent? How do we get more talent? And this is a great way to do it, but it's just the education around like, what it is, what can you do, what can't you do, how does it work from an administration standpoint? But once they know all that, I mean, given COVID, maybe not the best time. However, there's a ton of interest, and so I don't doubt that it's going to grow exponentially over our book.
Yeah, it's a tough dilemma, right? Between knowing that there's this huge movement of people kind of like you said, Kelsey, looking potentially to say, hey, do I still like what I'm doing? And I might be looking for something else. And it can be that really strong recruitment or way to differentiate yourselves. At the same time, being in a position to kind of give that. But like we said, if you're only giving $50, $100, you can keep that investment pretty nominal, but still kind of a cool opportunity to offering something unique. Well, as we wrap here, Wailana, maybe what we can think about is as we head into open enrollment and we kind of end our episodes with this, is there one takeaway that you would give employers or HR pros as they're kind of considering an LSA? What things should they think about? What things should they, focus on as we kind of near October, November timeframe here, and if they're considering an LSA?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think overall, the takeaway is just that it's a solid benefit, and that if you're able to, or if you're interested and able to invest in your employees and something like that, and you really value health and wellness in a well-rounded way, why not? I mean, it's really easy from an administration standpoint. Working with you all at WAX has been great, and you've all been very helpful from the administration side. Yeah, I mean, and then the customization of it is key. I mean, right, you've got your box product. However, you can do essentially anything with the benefit. And so if there's something that's specific to your employee base that they really care about, it's usually an eligible expense. And so it's a great way to just, up your ante with the recruitment efforts out there and set yourself apart from the competition. I mean, it would be key for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all down to what goals they're trying to achieve, right? What behaviors you're trying to influence in your employees. So I love that. Well, Thank you so much. It was so awesome to talk to you about lifestyle spending accounts. I agree with you. I think it's a benefit that people should take a closer look at. So we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
WAX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.